Hi everyone. I've lately been talking and writing to a lot of people who have never heard of breathwork before, or who have heard of it but haven't tried it and aren't really sure what it is. So I thought it might be a good idea to record a video for all of you in which I talk a little bit more comprehensive about breathwork, but I also want to say in advance that you really have to try it in order to know what it's about. So there's really no other way to know than actually do it. Nonetheless, for those of you who are curious or who are not yet quite sure if it's the right thing for them, a little bit of info might be helpful. So first of all, breathwork is ancient. It has been in almost all wisdom traditions. As far as I can tell, it's definitely a shamanic practice. It's definitely part of yoga of the Vedic tradition. It's definitely part of Buddhism. It's part of Taoism. You find it everywhere. And compared to that, the knowledge that we have contemporarily about breathwork in terms of contemporary science and also what's part of our everyday culture is very little. However, luckily, science is starting to catch up, and also popular culture is starting to catch up. And in particular, in the US, it's been becoming much more popular, breathwork. And part of that is due to James Nestor, a journalist who has already written a couple of other books, for example, on free diving. And then also last year, I think in the middle of last year, published a book called Breath, the Science of a Lost Art, in which he really very comprehensively gathers a lot of scientific data, a lot of information on different practices, and also describes his own experience with them. So that really kicked off more interest, at least in the US and in the UK, as far as I can tell as well. I don't think a German version is yet published, but I'm sure it will be soon. So the goal of breathwork overall is to increase, to become aware of our breath, to become aware of the power of our breathing, and to use it consciously in order to increase our well-being, in order to increase our mental and physical health. And there's two different areas of breathwork, two different areas of breathing, you could actually say, that matter or that you can distinguish. One of them is the everyday breathing. So how do we breathe around the clock from the moment we wake up till the moment we go to bed, and how do we breathe at night while we're sleeping? And that is really part of how our body autonomously regulates the breathing. And a lot can be said about that, a lot can be done in that area. To just give you one example, a lot of people breathe through their mouth. Apparently 70% of Americans breathe through their mouth at night, and that's something that, according to latest research, is really detrimental to health in the long term. Also, the way a lot of people breathe when they're doing sports is really detrimental. And there's also all these sort of small tips, these small things, these small practices that often only take a couple of minutes, that are mainly about retraining your system to breathe in a different way throughout your day autonomously. So that's one area of breathwork. And it's sought out by people who are into sports, who are into increasing their physical performance and so on, or it is often sought out by people who already have physical symptoms because of dysfunctional breathing. And I know quite a bit about that by now, and I do integrate it in my private and my one-on-one sessions to a certain degree. The focus, however, of my breathwork, of the work that I do with the breath, is on a different area of breathwork. And that's the one that I'm going to talk about now. And that is breathwork, a type of breathwork that you can compare, let's say, to a type of exercise, right? So it's something that you don't do around the clock, but that you do in specific moments, that you do for a specific amount of time, and that you do in a specific context. and that you have to learn first, or that you do under the supervision of someone or the facilitation of someone, right? So you can more compare it to doing exercise, right? Going to the gym, going to a yoga class, or meditating, right? These are things where you have a specific script for what you do. It's a specific type of practice. It's not the everyday thing in between here and there. And there's different schools and approaches for that type of breath work. So one of the most famous ones is holotropic breathing. Then there is rebirthing breath work, which is also pretty famous. Both originated in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. There is also a school which is called integrative breath, another one transformative breath, somatic breath, and so on. The one that I have learned, and of course Wim Hof has to be mentioned, who made breathwork extremely popular already, even before the book that I mentioned earlier by James Nestor. And the breathwork that I have learned is called clarity breathwork. It's a school that developed, that it's like an offshoot from rebirthing. The whole topic of birth experience became less prominent in clarity breathwork. And what distinguishes it from other types of breath work, in particular from holotropic breathing, is that it's very gentle in order to make sure that your nervous system is actually able to integrate the experience. So in a nutshell, what we do in a clarity breathwork session, and that applies for individual sessions as much as for group sessions, we breathe in a conscious way with a circular, connected breath, a particular type of inhale, a particular type of exhale, for 50 minutes to an hour. That will be the regular session. We do that lying down. So the client or the group, if it's a group, lies down flat on their back and breathes in this particular way. I guide the person or the group. In the case of a group session, there's music in the background that also gives the journey a certain shape, a certain trajectory. And I also guide with my voice. But the real guide is actually people's own body and their breath, because they usually really know where to go, what to do, what type of experience the person needs at that moment. And that is also already the key, I would say, to describing the breathwork experience, because for each person, each single journey really is different. If you ask people who have done breathwork repeatedly, who have the experience of having gone through various sessions, even with the same facilitator, even with the same group, each time it's really different for each individual person. And also it is hard to describe what is happening, because there is this huge variation between experiences, and then also some of the aspects are very physical and very subtle, so it's not easy to put them in words. You have to try it if you want to figure out what it really is like. And nonetheless, I'm going to give you a couple of ideas based on my own experience, based on the experience of the other people that got trained with me in the same cohort, and based on the experience of clients that I already worked with and of people who joined my group sessions already. So sometimes it's a very physical experience. People might notice that they had held tension in a particular part of their body, and that tension might be released. Sometimes pain in a particular part of your body decreases in a breathwork session. Sometimes we get very energized on a physical level. Sometimes we really notice how our body goes into a deep state of relaxation, much more profound than most people know it from yoga or from meditation. And that has something to do that in order to get to the same states that you get to with breathwork, you need much more meditation, much more yoga experience than breathwork. It's kind of a shortcut to many of these experiences, of these profound states of relaxation, these profound states of deep connection with oneself on multiple levels. I also had one client at some point who was really amazed because he could feel his heartbeat so much. And it was either that his heartbeat had actually become stronger in the breathwork session, or it was that he was just able to perceive it more. For him, it was a really fundamental thing to notice that, because he usually doesn't really feel himself in that way. He doesn't feel his heart in that way. And for him, it meant a lot to actually experience that in a breathwork session. A session can be very emotional. So a lot of and very specific emotions might come up. They might be very strong. Sometimes we're surprised because we didn't know that we had these emotions. Anger, for example, or sadness is a classical emotion that would come up that we often suppress, that we don't know that in a particular situation, in regards to a particular person in our life, in regards to particular events, that actually what we felt was anger or was sadness, because we often suppress it. And that might come up in the breath work, and it's beneficial because you actually get to feel it and to release it. And it usually also helps you to understand better how you're actually doing and how you are actually functioning and what actually you are feeling and what's going on inside of you, beyond the patterns of behavior that you have adopted in order to manage, to navigate within social settings, within your surroundings. It might also be very positive emotions that come up. It might be joy, it might be lust, desire. That can really be important pointers as to what you want to bring in more in your life. And in that regards, breathwork really is a useful guide, because it shows you what you want and what you don't want. It gives you a better sense of where you stand at the moment. It also often helps to gain perspective, to see a particular theme in your life, to see a particular issue or a particular relationship in a new light. Sometimes it also is an opportunity to gain a more forgiving perspective, to acquire and actually feel more forgiveness towards another person. And of course, in conflict situations, in relationships that are stressful to a certain degree, or where a certain degree of hurt has happened, that can be really helpful for moving on. Just like it can help us gain a new perspective on a topic that we already know, or a relationship that we're having, an experience that we had, breathwork can also help you gain clarity, like actually gain real insights into what your purpose is, what your path is, and also on a smaller scale, where you are standing in certain areas of your life, how you want to move on. And it sometimes really helps to sort out the web of things that are going on, of things that we're experiencing, of thoughts that we have, and produces a very unknown type of clarity and lucidity within our experiences. Besides that, and I'm going to drop a couple of more sort of vague or maybe more abstract things that breathwork really helps with. I think, however, that those people who have experienced it will know what I talk about, and also those people who actually need that type of experience, who desire that type of change, they will also know what I'm talking about. So breathwork is really great for peeling off layers of trauma and going deeper in your processing and in your healing. Breathwork is really great for connecting to your body in a different and often unknown way. Breathwork is really great for connecting to yourself and your true emotions, your real feelings in a different way. Breathwork is great for remembering your self-worth, for remembering how precious you are, for remembering how shiny you are, for remembering with how much freedom you were born into this world. And with what deep sense of connection you were actually born, and what deep sense of connection is possible. And breathwork can really help connect to yourself and others in a more loving way, in a more loving and more profound way. I know all of that sounds like a lot, and yeah, it really is an absolutely fascinating, amazing tool that ultimately, even though you have a facilitator with you, be it in a group or in a private session, but ultimately it really relies on your intuitive knowing, on your own intuition, on the intuition of your body and your breath. And that is what guides you in all of these processes and has these amazing, really amazing results. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you can see a couple of testimonials by other people who have already joined the breathwork, who've already done breathwork sessions with me. And I think that's also going to give you the same impression, that it can be an amazing tool if it's the right tool for you at the right moment. So yeah, I recommend you go check it out. At the moment, there's the opportunity to do that every second Sunday with me in a long session, and every Wednesday in February in a shorter session. And if you want to be kept updated about the upcoming dates, simply subscribe to my newsletter. Thanks.